Welcome back, everyone. This is Elevated Duty Podcast. It's been a while.
It has. Short break, Thanksgiving, Christmas coming up. It's a lot to pack in, but we have a really good one today.
Yeah. So if you see us in a different setup, it's because we have two guests today, and today we're trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
I tried in the past. It was kind of like rough for me, but now I made sure that we were all aligned because we knew this was going to happen. The previous one, which was Chief Kapak, we had to do one guest on here on the podcast, and the other one was virtual. So it was rough for me last minute trying to adapt. But this one, I prepare, and then you'll see the difference.
Yeah, it looks great. So you set it up. We are on the call live with two amazing leaders. We'll kind of pass it off, and if you two would like to introduce yourselves and kind of your backgrounds and where you are right now, pass it off.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. Sergeant First Class Uroza. I started with the Marine Corps back in 2004. I enlisted out of New Jersey, went to Paris Island for boot camp, basic training, and I ended up in the West Coast for 1833, which is the Assault Amphibious Vehicle Operator schoolhouse here in Camp Pendleton. Then I got my orders for my first duty station, which was 29 Palms. 6 months into my new unit, we deployed to Iraq. They came back, PCS to Pendleton, and then I went on recruiting duty. Did that for about 3 years in Boston. Came back to the West Coast and ended up going on a MU on the 31st. We ended up going to Okinawa and came back and in 2015. And then in 2016, I ended up joining the National Guard. So I spent 12 years in the Marine Corps. I wanted to continue my career in the military. Of course, the Marine Corps was not the best fit for my family, so we ended up with the Guard, which was phenomenal because we've been blessed with everything that we've gotten with the Guard. And so now, when I joined the Guard, I became a 88 Mike. And then I became a recruiter, and then did recruiting with California for about 5 years, and then went Title 10 as a Marine to Guard transition counselor. So I've been in this position for about a year and a half or so.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergeant Uroza.
So it's going to be the same exact story. So my name is Staff Sergeant Dibiaso. I came out of Illinois from Title 32. I came in Title 10, but I joined the Marine Corps back in 2000. Came in, I went to the West Coast, though, San Diego, and then got stationed on the East Coast here at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is where I'm currently stationed at Title 10. But I was here, and then from there, a bunch of deployments and all that fun stuff. Ended up doing my BDO as a recruiter up in Minnesota. For me, it wasn't so much that it wasn't a good fit for my family, like Sergeant was a set service limitations. So I was to staff sergeant, but just didn't get it. I got passed over. So for me, Marine Corps said, "You're done." And I was like, I got more in me. So I switched over to the Guard back in Illinois, where I'm from, brought my family there, which actually ended up being a really good fit for my family. And then, so I did that back in 2017 and was a career recruiter. Switched over to 7910, and then Battle 10 package came over here for Marine Guard like about this time last year. So it's been a little over a year for me as well.
Awesome. So, we're glad we have you here. I know Sergeant Uroza found out about the podcast, doing some search online, and he was like, hey, I saw the podcast with, I think it was Sergeant Vu and Sergeant B.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, so the Marine to Guard is actually a program. I didn't knew. I thought it was like an actual saying. It's like, hey, I was a Marine and I moved to the Guard, and then that's why we built the link. And then Sergeant Toller, from the IST and ISR office, he helped us to link. And then basically he's like, hey, we have so much more to offer, and we wanna spread our message out there, not only for the Colorado state but also for all the states that can benefit from this information, because they cover all the states. So So our first question it will be what basically is the Marine to Guard program? Because as I came from the reserve, and then I don't think I'm not sure if we have something similar, but in Puerto Rico, I've never heard of this program. Heard from this when I moved to recruiting here in Colorado.
Yeah, same. I've heard the saying, right, Marine to Guard, throughout my career here in the Colorado National Guard. And like Sergeant Rivera was saying, we had Sergeant Brunda Orta and Sergeant Vuon. And they were talking about their transfer from when they were in the Corps into the Guard now. And then same thing, Sergeant Toller here, ISR coordinator for Colorado. This term's been thrown out a lot. Can you gentlemen explain, for prior service individuals or Marines that are maybe watching or listening, what exactly is the program and kind of just the overview to get us started?
Sure. Stefan, you want to go take this? Gotcha. All right. So essentially, the Marine to Guard program is similar to the Reserve Component Career program that the Army offers, right? So, for example, the program, the RCCC program that the Army has, is soldiers that are planning to leave the military, right? They have the option to go Army Reserves or National Guard. Mm-hmm. So NGB essentially implemented the same concept for Marines, right? So essentially, we meet Marines, we talk to them about their options, and we tell them, hey, we can make a transition from the Marine Corps into the National Guard pretty much seamless, right? A lot of these Marines don't have to go back to MEPS. They don't have to do a physical because we can utilize their initial MEPS physical when they first came into the Marine Corps. So in essence, it's just a transition program to facilitate those Marines the opportunity to, hey, where are you going? For example, I'm going to El Paso, Texas. We can reach out to the Interstate Transfer Coordinator or the ISRs in those states or Colorado. Yep. Say I have a Marine who is interested in a 31 Bravo to stay in Denver, right? And then we can essentially plug that Marine into that position while they're still in the Marine Corps. So that's the key aspect of our program, right? They don't have to wait till they leave the Marine Corps in order for them to start the process.
That's great. So that being said, how many Marines, like in an average, use this program annually? Because on here we have a lot. Like our sergeant major for the Recruit and Retention Battalion, he came from the Marine. The upcoming podcast after this one, stay tuned for that one, will be Sergeant Parker. He's our MEPS counselor.
Yep, he was Marine.
So he was a Marine. Sergeant Vu, Sergeant B, and we have so much other people that come from the Marine Corps. In the MECBOT, we recently had, I think, 2 or 3 that recently came. They're the newest soldiers in our ranks. So how many Marines use this in an annual basis?
Like through our program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Sergeant Rose, I don't remember how many you did on your side over on the West Coast, but I know we finished close to like around 58 total new contracts for our on the East side just last FY. So then if you add what they did over there on the West Coast, you guys were like 130, weren't you? Or
we were at about close to 90.
Close to. Oh, so all together we ended up close to like
together, combined Hawaii, East Coast and West Coast, around 130.
That's a lot of Marines.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you talk about like Marine to Guard that you've heard in the past, it's kind of like where we were at as well, like your Sergeant Major and the Sergeant Parker that you just mentioned, Marines that came into the Guard. So there's Marine to Guard, our program, and then Marines coming into the Guard after the fact, which is what we all did. And it kind of gets lost when you're having those conversations with seasoned NCOs and staff NCOs that are in for a while. It's like, what's your background? Like, oh, I started off in the Marine Corps, and then I came into the Guard. So they're like, oh, Marine to Guard. That aspect, our program brings in Marines that are currently active duty, or they even EAS. This way they can figure out, it's kind of like a skill bridge. We're built off that RCCC that we had mentioned.
Yep.
So this is talking to them, figuring it out before they actually end up ending that first contract or their second, wherever contract they're currently on, to make sure that they're fit that in their home state. Set all 54 states and territories, so we can put them wherever they're at, even in Puerto Rico, and make sure that they're all happy where they're at and fit here.
Yeah, that's great. That's a lot of numbers, and these Marines get to continue on serving. I know you mentioned, when a Marine's coming up on their contract and they're getting close to their separation date. Sergeant Uroza, you were talking about this, to where their option is either, they can go into the reserves, right, or into the IRR if they have still IRR remaining time, or use the Marine to Guard program to transfer directly into the Guard. What are some benefits that maybe the Marine to Guard program would be more beneficial to these Marines than the reserves?
So off the bat, one of the benefits is that the Guard offers more opportunities, right? The Guard in every state, you can pretty much live in any, town in America, and there's bound to be a Guard unit there, right? Number two is that they have more options in terms of picking a different MOS that is not available in the Army Reserves, right? And obviously the state incentives that these Marines or soldiers are entitled to once they join their respective guards. So that's something that we touch on when we tell them, hey, these are the benefits, the pros and cons of, reserves versus, guard. And something that we also tell them is, in the event of a natural disaster or any state emergency, you can be part of that, right? You can volunteer, which is something that is unique to the Guard. So that is kind of enticing to a lot of Marines, because a lot of them join to serve. And I'm not taking away from being, active duty, but they want to make a contribution and make an impact in people's life. And when we tell them, hey, you can do those things in the Guard back home, while still having a normal civilian life.
Yep.
So now that you mentioned that, so transitioning either from active duty to like Army to National Guard is, for some people, is hard. So how is, in your experience, is transitioning from the Marine Corps into the National Guard?
It's hard.
Not that hard.
No, it's not hard. It's just, again, one of those things that we just brief everybody. And active duty to reserve is already hard in itself, going from the 9 to 5, living it every single day, to just doing it 1 weekend a month. That's already that whole atmosphere change. Here, the thing that makes it harder on our side, and I brief, is it's just like rank structure. If you look at the pay grade, everything is the same. But the way that the workflow goes, small unit leadership from Marine Corps to Army, is just a little bit different. So a lot of the Marines that I deal with or that I talk to on an E3 coming from the infantry could be a frontline leader, as an E3, and he's running things. And then you're like, okay, cool. After 4 years, you now transition into the Guard and you come in as 11 Bravo. You're not doing that. So you're not running a team the way that you did as an E3 in the infantry, the Marine Corps. So it's just a little bit of difference there. And then it's just, realistically, it's just coming in for that, just letting them know that it's slowing everything down, and you're taking 30 days worth of work and rising it into 1 weekend. It's just a little bit more slower pace to start. But once you get it, everything kind of works out. And then, as we've already said, a lot of our soldiers that are already in the Guard are Marines. So we just let them know that once you get to that unit, no matter what MOS it is, a lot of Marines are going to be in that unit. So they'll be able to take you under your wing and help you transition and navigate those little intricacies that are different from one branch to another, and help you kind of just smooth over rough edges or just the little things like that.
Yeah, I love that you said that, kind of smooth over the rough edges, because you had just mentioned it, and we see it here in Colorado, and I'm sure you see it where you're at, and every state sees it. But the amount of prior service individuals that come into the Guards organization and bring those skills from the Air Force, from the Navy, from the Marine Corps, from the Coast Guard, and those different leadership styles, and when we've met quite a few, and we've had a few on the podcast that are coming out of active duty, and like you said, they're coming off that 9 to 5, right? They're coming off that full-time active duty lifestyle, and then all of a sudden they're out, and they're missing that drive, that purpose. They want to continue to give back to their communities. They still want to have those leadership roles and assignments. And that's where the Guard really shines from what we've seen, is kind of that melting pot of leaders within the organization all coming together and now being able to continue to serve together. For your Marines that are listening, that are, getting close to that contract, getting close to the end of their contract, and they're looking to get out, we talk about it all the time on almost every single podcast. We don't care if you want to be a teacher, doctor, lawyer, firefighter, first responder, own your own business, like, go be successful, continue to be successful. You have in your Marine Corps career. And if you want to get out and go kind of more on the civilian side and come Guard and settle down and surround yourself in a position and state, where you want to live, and not be told where to live, what would be the guidance for these Marines? They're coming up. Should they be starting to look at 360 out, 360 days, 180, 90? What should they be doing to prepare to get in touch with both of you gentlemen to make the transfer from Marine to Guard?
So typically we do conduct briefings at 29 Palms. And just to mention, we do have a location here in Camp Pendleton. We have an office at the Education Center. However, we are limited in terms of what we can do and how we can reach out to Marines. The Marine to Guard program kind of survives on, word of mouth.
Okay.
Right? We provide the service, and then that Marine then comes around and tells their friends, right? There's obviously, we are not allowed to promote or announce or give out business cards, anything like that. So everything is done through the connections that we build with the staff here. However, when we do go and we brief the Marines, obviously, one of the first things that we tell them, that I ask personally, is like, who has a pending reenlistment packet for the Marine Corps, right? Because we obviously want them to stay in the Marine Corps, right? Whether it's Marine Corps active duty or reserve. Right? They're already a Marine, is a lot easier. However, if they don't want to stay in the Marine Corps, even as a reservist, obviously we tell them that, the options that we have. 180 days out is when we typically tell the Marines, hey, when you're 6 months away from your EAS or ETS, that's when we can actually start the process with you. It gives them time to figure it out, if this is really something that I want to do. And they can, actually start planning for other stuff too, Border Patrol, CHP, Sheriff Department. A lot of these guys are actually planning other stuff simultaneously while they're talking to us as well too. So we try to advise them on when it's a good time. It's usually 6 months out. We do get Marines that are a year out, 2 years out, and they're like, hey, I want to join the Guard. What can I do? Obviously, we'll take their information and we let them know, hey, once you reach 180 days out, we can go ahead and start the process. We'll put you on our tracker, and then we'll periodically just stay in touch with you. So that way you know that, hey, we do care about you, and we're gonna hit you up once that time comes.
So, I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, basically, this is whenever they're ready, because it's a transitioning process. But what if Marine wants to keep their MOS whenever they want to come in, and then they don't want anything else, or how you deal with that? Showing them the the opportunities that we provide on other MOSs that might be or not, or they might not be available in the Marine Corps.
And so the first thing we look at when they come in, asking about MOSs, is does it convert over? So we have a conversion chart, and some MOSs have been identified as they'll just flow right into the Guard from the Marine Corps seamlessly, like 11 Bravo, 88 Mike, etc. So we have that one that we're working off of. And then there's MOSs, like if you're a radio operator, for whatever reason, that doesn't actually convert over. So if you were trying to be in the 5 series, you could still do that if they were like, I want to keep my MOS and that's it. So convert over. That's fine. We just got to let them know that once they get the unit, they're still going to have to go to AIT, because for whatever reason, Army school and Marine Corps school for that MOS didn't core. There are other opportunities if we come out. This is why 180 days out is a good fit for coming to talk to us in these situations, is that gives us time to actually submit to NGB and be like, here's the school records or JSTs and all their certificates to see if we can get an approval or a conversion on that MOS. So if we're able to do that and have the time to do that, then we can make that as like almost like an ETP, and then we can get that version over and then MOS the AIT. But if you come in as you're 311 in the Marine Corps doing infantry stuff, and you're like, I just want to drive trucks, even though both MOSs convert over, you don't that MOS. So now you're getting a whole new MOS,
Sure.
A reclass or a lat move, whichever way we want to look at it. But now you are going to have to do AIT through that whole process.
That's great. And then what if that soldier, what if that soldier cannot transfer or, keep that MOS? What's the process? Do they attend to any specific school, or they go to the same schools, our AIT guys go? How that works for them?
Okay, so I'm going to use myself.
I was just going to say same.
So, yeah, no. So to piggyback on that one, right? So what you were saying about converting MOSs. So we've been pretty successful lately in converting a lot of Marine Corps MOSs into Army MOSs that are not on that list that's provided. It's just a matter of, like Sergeant Dibiaso was mentioning, collecting those source documents and then sending them to proponent, and then if they approve it, then we can award that Marine that MOS. Let's say the Marine wants a different MOS, we can still award that MOS and give them a different MOS. Now they have two MOSs, right? So they have dual MOSs when they come over to the Guard. Offering them more opportunities if they want to transition to a different field. When I left the Marine Corps, obviously my MOS did not transfer. So I went with motor transportation, 88 Mike. I checked into my unit. I talked to my training NCO, and I discussed options. Hey, when is the best time for me to go to the schoolhouse so that way I can get MOS trained? Within about 4 months, I got my orders, and I reported to San Luis Obispo for 88 Mike School. So for those Marines that are particularly interested in, like, hey, do I have to go back to the schoolhouse if I lat move? How does it look like? Typically, you don't have to go to the regular Army advanced individual training. You're going to go to a conversion course with other soldiers who are laddering. They're doing a transition into that particular MOS. So it's usually more of an E4 and above individuals in your class. In my class for 88 Mike, I had 5 Marines that just left the Marine Corps going into that particular MOS. They understand, hey, you're a prior service, you're a Marine or you're active duty soldier. We can kind of get rid of some of the basic stuff that you have, the drill sergeant and stuff like that. It's more of a gentleman's type of course, right? You know what you're supposed to do, just get the things that you need to do and then go back home.
That's good that essentially your MOS is going to transfer over sometimes, and if it doesn't, there's ways around that, right? And we can help these Marines, whether that's acquiring a new MOS, picking up that secondary MOS, or transferring it and doing a conversion with an MOS. Does it also apply for all of the other schools that these Marines attend, right? And so, for us on the Army side, for a soldier to get promoted through the enlisted ranks, going to now BLC and then ALC and then SLC, do all of your ribbons transfer over? Do all of your school accreditations for like corporal's course and sergeant's course transfer over? How does all the rest of your packet transfer over?
Well, your awards are going to definitely transfer over. That's all for you. You go on Ribbon Rack, and then I always just tell them, click Army instead of Marine and put in all the same basic stuff, and I'll show you how to do it. And then, the only difference realistically is Marine Corps uniform keeps it all on one side, and then the Army breaks it up onto both sides. So then they get to see how that whole enclosure goes. As far as skill schools, is the short, sweet answer of it. But again, it's all regulations just keep changing. So, as you know, we just switched over, and you don't have to do BLC now in order to get promoted. It all just kind of shifted up. So it's the same kind of course here. If you have an E5 coming over, we can't do demotions. We don't demote or promote. So whatever their current rank is, that's what they're going to come and slide over as. and we try to find that skill level for them of where they're at. Usually, in my and I'll just speak from my side, is it's just when you hit the E6 and E7s that are coming over, whether or not something's going to happen at that level, just because you're looking at your skill level, 3 skill level. Can we bring them over or not? They're looking to try to just basically get to their retirement and keep their benefits moving. Because they can stay, they couldn't hit 20 on the side of active duty for whatever reason. So when they come over, those are case by case basis, and that's where we really want to look at all their certificates and everything like that. We do a little bit more digging in. But if you're in E5 or below coming over, especially since we just changed the regulations, there's no schoolhouse on that. So if they did corporal course, great, but it really doesn't mean anything on our side. If they did sergeant's course, that's the one where it's going to be, are they ready for SLC or to get promoted? But again, since we shifted up, it doesn't really matter.
Yep. That's good. And you were talking about those kind of senior Marines, right? E6, E7 level types. How does that work if they have that high tenure and they're trying to transfer over Marine to Guard?
As long as you're not retired, you can come over, right? Obviously, you're just going to have a little bit of more of an issue going to some of your, especially if you're reclassing, right? If you're reclassing and then you have to catch up to your PME, right? That can pose an issue. You might be stuck in that pay group for a little bit until you obviously go to your M1 schoolhouse and then go to your PME schoolhouse. And I speak from experience. When I came over to the Guard, 88 Mike, the schoolhouses were backed up in terms of ALC and then SLC, which is a bachelor's course and engineers, leaders course. So they had to front load those individuals that were on the previous Army program where they were promoting prior to having the PME school. So those guys were priority. So it took me a little while to go to ALC and then SLC and then eventually get promoted. So yeah, as you get higher in the rank structure on the enlisted side, if you're in one of those high density MOSs, it can be a little bit slower in terms of promotion.
So now that you mentioned, slow transitions based on depending on where you are in your career, depending on where you at, MOS based, what is your experience based on, you have worked. If I'm okay, if I'm right with the number, over 130 something Marines last year. So what was the hardest part of the transitioning? Like, it was a specific document, it was a specific requirement. What you guys found it was the hardest portion for the transition from the Marine to Guard program?
I don't know about hard. It's pretty seamless, pretty easy. We asked that say as soon as we can talk to you is 180 days out. But I had a Marine a couple of months ago that was on his EAS day. So all in a day, we were able to get everything done.
Wow.
So it really, we run the whole gamut of everything. In that regard, it's hard. And that's only on my end or on the IST coordinator that we work with for the state, because we're having to communicate back and forth. We got time differences. Like I said, I'm over here on the East Coast, and it's 1400, and then you guys just got done with breakfast. So it's just different sides of the country. And when we're working on it, that's probably maybe the hardest, is just the time zone thing and how much time you give us to work with it. But again, we got it done. So at the end of the day, we did our job. We got that Marine taken care of. He set up in a unit, was over his MSO. So we went straight to an accession at the state. So, everything really worked out. It was just hard on that Marine side because he waited, because he was trying other things on his side. And again, knowledge is power. He didn't know about us until a VA rep actually mentioned it earlier in the week, and then he comes to us on the day that he's getting out of the Marine Corps. So we just had to gather up all his documents, and it was a longer day than I normally would have done, trying to make sure everything happened. And at the end of it, we got it done. So that's where we're not hourly, we're salary. So made it happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And can you break that down for me and for the viewers and listeners? So, like that Marine that you were talking about, that individual who on the very last day, right, of their contract was able to transfer and use the Marine to Guard program. What are the steps after Marine to Guard transition is done through you two? Paperwork signed, new units assigned. What happens to these Marines? What's the next step? Is it just directly reporting to that unit at drill weekend for the following month, or how does that work?
Yeah, got it. So if the Marine has any MSO left, right, mandatory service obligation, which means they did 4 years and then they have 4 years of the IR.
Mm-hmm.
The Marine, when they EAS the Marine Corps, they're going to automatically be dropped into the Marine Corps IR. Right. So what we do is we send a conditional release to the Marine Corps IR for them to process. Right. Once we receive that conditional release approved, we'll notify the Marine and say, hey, I got your conditional release. I am sending your entire enlistment packet to your ISR coordinator in your state. And then we explain to them it's not going to be instant. Right? It's going to be roughly 30 to 45 days, depending on how quickly the X3 and then the G1 process that paperwork to IPSA, right? We do put them in contact with their ISR individuals, so that way that Marine feels comfortable and they're not left in the dark. Say, hey, this is your point of contact. They're going to take care of your packet. They will notify you once you're in the Army system. That way you can go ahead and then check into your unit. However, what I tell my Marines is don't wait for that phone call. Don't wait for you to be in the system to go and pay your unit a visit. Just do a courtesy visit, because that's what I did. I went over there in proper civilian attire and I introduced myself. I told him, hey, I'm Staff Sergeant Uroza. I just left the Marine Corps. I understand that I'm not in your books yet. However, I just wanted to introduce myself so that way when that Marine goes back to their actual drill weekend, they know at least someone, 1 or 2 people in that unit that they can talk to. So that way they feel more comfortable.
That's good.
As opposed to showing up to the unit, you're walking around kind of like, your first day in school, in a new school, and you're walking around not having any idea where to go.
Okay, that's good. That gives me a good timeline, and it gives the Marines watching that good timeline of what to kind of expect. What's something that these Marines should watch out for? What would stop a Marine using the Marine to Guard? Is there something have you seen something, that you can push out that if you did X, Y, or Z, this is not going to be an option for you?
Yeah, I just simply tell Marines if it involves a waiver, we can't do it. So if you're getting med boarded out for whatever reason, it really is on your DD 214 on the bottom of it. There's a RE code for your reenlistment side. Technically, it needs to say a 1. I believe there's Sergeant Uroza, correct me, is it 3 Oscar or 3 Papa? That we're able to still work.
Or Charlie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are the only 2 exceptions. But if you're RE4, means you're really bad. But for whatever reason, if you get out and you don't have that RE code, and something's happening to make you not eligible to reenlist right away, that's where you have to go back to your state and talk to a canvassing recruiter that's just out there on the streets, which we will help facilitate that with the IST coordinators. We let them know ahead of time we can't work with you. Sure. If you have to get there, and we try to find out who that local recruiter is so we can at least get that point of contact for when that happens. Well, with that being said, those are usually the only things that'll kind of stop them from coming in that I've seen. Or, the biggest one is I'm going to get 100% disability. Can I still come in? No.
Right.
So that's when we talk about how the VA disability works and ratings and all that kind of stuff and the benefits of being in the Guard and having to act if that is the case, or how it all works and comes towards it. But usually it's the ones who are like, I'm 100% getting VA disability at 100% rating, but I still want to join the Guard.
Okay. That's good.
Can I push back on that one?
Yeah.
Can I push back on that one? So the Marine will know what their percentage is going to be after they're out, right? So they can submit their claims in their BDDs while they're in the Marine Corps. However, their final rating usually happens once they're out of the Marine Corps. If they sign their contract, which is the only way that they can do the Marine Guard program while they're still in the Marine Corps, and they get their rating later, and that's a unit discretion in terms of if they want to keep that service member or not, right? I've had multiple Marines who joined the Guard and were rated at 80, 90, 100%, and they're still drilling. They're obviously just not getting paid by the Guard and the VA. They got to notify, right? The double dip. So that's going to be at a unit level in terms of, hey, you're 100%. we're going to discharge you, right? Again, I know plenty of Marines who are still in the Guard. They can perform, they can do PT tests, they can go to the rifle range, they're deployable.
Yep.
Right, so they are in the drilling. So, again, boils down to the unit.
Sergeant Dibiaso, I know you were talking about the RE codes for these Marines looking at their D-214s when they get out. I had heard like a rumor throughout my career, and I'm not sure you guys can confirm this or deny this, but like a Marine coming up on the end of their contract says, hey, I did my 4 years, whatever my first contract is, I did my 6 years, whatever it is, and I want to get out, right, voluntarily, and I was a good Marine, of units RE3ing Marines because they did not continue to serve in the Marine Corps. Is that just a rumor I've heard, or is there some truth behind that?
So, personal story. I actually was getting out of the Marine Corps and was given a 30-day extension to figure out about that promotion. Like I was saying, I got passed over and I was fighting it. So they were giving me 30-day extensions, and that's as far as they could do it. And after about my third 30-day extension, still trying to figure this out, I got burnt out. In the meantime, I made sure that I took care of my family and set up everything to transition to the Guard. So when I did that and said I'm leaving, they said, well, we approved you a 30-day extension. So they said I was voluntarily getting out, and they RE3E'd me. So now I ended up having to wait 12 months to actually come into the Guard. So I had a break in service coming in. I haven't seen that here, but I do, from my own personal story, let them know, like, hey, this is why we check your RE code, and they can go to their career counselors, and they actually know what their RE code is going to be before they actually get their DD-214. We say, I send them all back to the counselors, and I say, find out what it is that's going to actually be on there. And 99% of the time, they all come back and say that I'm getting an RE1A. I haven't really seen anybody, I wouldn't say 100%.
Sure. Okay.
So, that being said, within the transition at the end, you got to sign a contract with the National Guard. So what type of contracts and incentives do we have for those Marines willing to join the National Guard?
Okay, so typically if the Marine is MOS qualified, meaning that their MOS transfers over to the Army, they can do 1 or they can do 6 years, right? It's up to the Marine what they want to do. Typically what I like to do, if they're MOS qualified, I just tell them, hey, do a 1-year contract, right? Because that gives you enough time to experience the Guard, right? And if you like it, then you can re-enlist, right? You can re-enlist and get a bonus. You get a retention bonus that way, especially for the ones that maybe may not qualify for an initial re-enlistment bonus. We tell them, hey, we don't have that MOS as a bonus right now. However, you can do a 1-year contract, and then you can re-enlist and then get a retention bonus through your unit.
Yep.
But that 1-year contract, it gives them some sort of ease, because what if they don't like it, right? And I like to be transparent with Marines. Hey, you may like the Guard, you may not like the Guard, right? If you don't like it, at least you can do 1 year and then, call it quits and, do something else. But on the other side, if you like it, you can re-enlist. If you're not MOS qualified, we automatically do a 2 or 3 year contract. All right, that gives enough time for the new soldier to get acclimated with the Army customs and courtesies and everything else. Get some on the job training while they're drilling with their unit, and then go to the schoolhouse. It's specifically those guys that require a TS. They have to have that first before they even go to MOS school. So that gives enough time for the unit investigator to make sure that that's good to go, so that way they can send that soldier to their schoolhouse.
That's great that you're upfront with them. It's like, hey, you might not like it, and then that's something Sergeant Norcross always emphasize on the podcast. Is like, hey, you can come to me, and then if your needs are, hey, I need a full-time job, I need this, I need that, and then he was like, active duty might be better for you, and then he will guide you through that. And again, like, you can transition to any of our components at any time. So that's something that we also mentioned to them. It's like, hey, if you like active duty, just transition, try it. If you don't like it, go back to active duty and try Army active duty instead of National Guard. I think the most important thing is to try it and get the opportunity. when I was in Puerto Rico, I never thought I was gonna end up in the National Guard, and I was transitioning back here to the reserve, and the National Guard called me. He's like, "Hey, you want a full-time job?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want a full-time job." so,
Yeah.
obviously I was MOS qualified and everything. That's why submit my job application. So that stuff that Marines need to keep in mind is like and that's something I like from the Army. So we are the biggest branch, so you can jump back and forth uh, as long as you're doing it smart. And if you have a bonus, you gotta double think about it. It's like, hey, you might they might recoup that, so you gotta think about that. But there's always an opportunity to change not only MOSs but also components. Um, so that being said, we already talked about bonuses. So what about benefits? What benefits do we offer uh, that Marines might not know that we have them?
All of
Yep.
them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, Sergeant Uroza, how do you approach benefits?
Well, I mean, to me, the benefit is, I don't know if you can categorize it as a benefit, but I see it as a benefit. Hey, I can be back home
Yep.
and drive 20 minutes, 15 minutes to my unit, right? That's the benefit, right? Another benefit to me is that you don't have to go back to maps. You know, that's a huge selling point. A lot of these Marines don't want to go back to maps, right? The reason why I bring that up is because if you leave the Marine Corps and you want to come back into the service, right? Except for the Marine Corps, you have to go back to MEPS. And then unfortunately, we're all familiar with MHS Genesis, right? So, you're going to have to go back to MEPS. That doctor has access to all your medical records, Marine Corps and civilian, and your VA claims. So it's going to be usually an automatic disqualification. And we don't tell this to the Marines to kind of, persuade them from getting out. We just blunt, right? Hey, if you get out, you're probably not going to come back in, right? Unless you go through a recruiter and they put in a waiver for you and then get you back in, right? So I think that's the biggest takeaway from our program, because you can get to skip that whole portion that maps, and then go straight into your unit, right? And then obviously all the other incentives, you can apply for AGR, right? Which the only component that offers that is the Army Reserves, right? Army doesn't provide that. I believe the Air Force Reserve or the other Navy, they don't have like an AGR program or ADOS. So that's the benefit too, for soldiers that are looking for, part-time active duty, or they want to go active duty like myself, that's Dibiaso, that's also a benefit for them to apply for. And obviously TRICARE, that's the biggest thing too, right? Another thing that we tell them is, hey, you leave the military, you leave the Marine Corps, you have a family, you have some certain conditions, you're going to lose that TRICARE, right? And if you don't have a job, how are you going to get medical attention if you need so, right? And then obviously, and another big one is when these Marines are job hunting, they go to USA Jobs and they'll see that there's certain jobs that require affiliation with the National Guard, right? So we tell them, hey, that's a really cool job. However, you need to be a guardsman to go and apply for that position. So we also kind of throw that out there and let them know, hey, this is a benefit because you're in the Guard. You can also get a federal technician job as well too.
Yeah. So that was my case. I was transitioning. I submitted a USA job application, and it's like, hey, do you want to join the Guard? I was like, I'm already a service member. It's like, oh, do you want to change the Guard? I was like, for the job, I'll do it. Yep. So and that's what I'm emphasize is like, let's say you want a job and they require an Army Reserve affiliation, that's is a big thing, getting a tech position or even a tech position. So let's say they offer that to you, just switch to the reserve and then you get the job. How many Marines do we currently have in the National Guard? Do you guys have that number?
No, but I'll definitely say half.
There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So my unit, you see, is the first ID patch. So my unit is the MechBot, and I'll say we currently have 45 soldiers that go on a drill every month, and I'll say, I don't know, like 7 or 8 are Marines. And something I noticed is that I mentioned this before in the podcast, is like we had a couple of them showing up straight from the Marine Corps, right? And then something I've seen is the culture shock, so and I think I'm gonna keep this one as a funny memory for me. It's like we're on the formation, right? And then first formation, first sergeants, do accountability, do everything, and then he breaks the whole unit into a horseshoe formation, and then the Marine guy looks everywhere. It's like, what's a horseshoe formation? It's like you just stand around him, because he's like, we don't do this in the Marine Corps. At least on the unit I never did this. It's like we always stayed in formation, and like we don't break out like that. And then I told him, now the purpose of this is like, he can speak to you more closely, and he's more relaxed, and then it makes the leadership closer to the actual soldier, even though the first sergeant is speaking to the whole unit. So that's the thing. For those Marines out there, what I've seen as on my experience is that is that culture shock, that we are a little bit more relaxed. We know that we are human beings. We have families, so they like the first sergeant will come to you. Is like, hey, how's your family? How's your wife doing? How's your job? Because we all have civilian jobs or full-time jobs with the Guard. So that's something I tell them is like, and I like what they bring to the Guard. There's smart 100%. People. They snap to parade rest. They call you sergeant, first sergeant. They call you by your rank and everything. And I'm trying to help them. Just like, hey, relax. Like there's you'll get used to it, to know when you're in business or you're relaxed, and you'll get used to it, because that's something I noticed is Marines are always on business. There's no break for them.
Well, and you're turned on 100%. We were talking about it early in the podcast about living that active duty life 24/7, 365. If anything, for the Marines listening, it's, maybe you think your military time is coming to an end and this is it and you're done. But this is a very, especially like you were saying, Sergeant Uroza, this is a very easy transition to kind of help you turn that off. If you think that you are coming to the end of your career and you were on active duty as a Marine for 4 or 6 years, whatever may be the case, for you to try that Try-1 contract, or come over and do a small contract with the Guard, and 1 weekend a month you're still showing up to drill, kind of getting it out of your system, right? Or realizing that, hey, I can switch the switch instead of full time. I can now control that that active duty lifestyle and be able to turn it on and off at the Marine's discretion. Can you, both of you or either one of you, touch on SAFAS selection for Marines that want to come into the SOF community in the Guard?
Yeah, I got that one. So essentially, we do have, we can send Marines to selection, whether it's on active duty. And what I tell a lot of Marines is, well, the first question that I ask them, are you ready? All right, because they think, oh, I'm just going to try out, right? It's hard. I've never been through selection, right? But I can tell by the amount of Marines that I've been through, that I've sent through the program, it's very challenging. But we can help them. I prep their packets together. I send them all the information that they need to include the dates when they go to selection, and I take care of all the administrative stuff, from their SWIC stamp, to getting them an ATARS reservation, and to getting them across LOA for DTS for them to submit for travel. The only thing that they need is literally just verbal approval from their command. If their command gives them a thumbs up, yes, I allow you to go to selection for 4 weeks, then they can go. And if they're successful at selection, obviously they'll come back, and then we will then write their contract, and we'll attach them to whatever group they're going to, right? Hey, you're going to be part of the Special Warfare Training Detachment 19 group in Los Alamitos, right? So it's a guaranteed slot into that group, right? We do get a letter of acceptance from the group saying, hey, yes, we are going to take this Marine. Once the Marine's in the Guard, they will then go to airborne school, right? So that is up to the unit to send them to airborne school.
Yep.
and then once they come back from airborne school, then they're going to go to the first, right? And I do tell Marines, hey, there's going to be a little gap in between schoolhouses, airborne school and SFQC, because obviously, you got to make those restorations. However, they are training with Green Berets during that time period, right? So they're getting ready for airborne school, course and whatnot, and get us some good advice from these guys. And we've been pretty successful with that program.
Good.
I would like to see more enlisted try out for the program. 90% of my candidates are officers, lieutenants, captains. I got one major. So if you're an enlisted Marine and want to go to selection, I encourage you to at least try out.
Awesome.
Now that you mentioned that you want to see more people try it out, has any of of your Marines coming to the Guard that you work with them reached back to you and basically told you, hey, I like it, I don't like it? What's the feedback from them?
I like it. That's what I've gotten. I've gotten a couple people that reached back out and just mostly people touch back base with us because there's maybe a hiccup with their paperwork, or they just EAS'd and then like 24 hours later they're calling the IST coordinator or the point of contact and like they don't know anything. So they're trying to move too fast. And that's, again, going back to just that mindset we were talking about. They're like, well, I EAS, now I got to get a hold of the unit. I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want to be UA. So they're moving 100 miles an hour, as we said. And we're like, just slow it down. Remember, we said you got 30 days to check in after EAS. Give it some time, or, just go there and make that visit. So you do that face to face, but they know they're not going to see your all your paperwork yet. But at least we're putting a face to a name. You know where the location is, and they can start that. But other than that, that kind of reached back. I've got one positive one, and then I had one who actually joined and then called to cancel because he actually ended up going to Marine Reserves, and then called to say that he regretted canceling on me and going to Reserves because of the simple fact of he was Upper East Coast. He was in New Hampshire. And then we kept him we were going to put him in the New Hampshire Guard. Everything was good for him and his family that he was just starting. He just had a kid, and everything was working really good because he was right there. And then prior service Marine recruiter that got him to join the Reserves, which was an easier transition going from Marines to them because they're already the IRR and everything. And that's how he got him to understand that. So he switched over. But the unit that he put him in was in Connecticut. So he had to drive from New Hampshire to Connecticut once a month. And then that was putting a big toll on him with, recently new wife and a recently new kid. So it was putting that strain. And he's like, I really wish I would have stuck with it. Plus, we converted his MLS. He was a 88 Mike. He was a truck driver. Easy. We canceled his contract because we had everything set up. And that's where it kind of comes to is we're doing everything before your EAS. So it's very easy if something situational changes and you decide to re-enlist in the Marine Corps, whatever the case may be, like as long as it's before EAS, we're good. But after EAS, we're submitting everything. So now you have to do it at the unit.
You gentlemen, I know at the beginning of the podcast we were talking about how it's kind of tough in your situation to kind of go and speak about the Marine to Guard program to these Marines. Where, besides, hopefully this podcast gets shared for those Marines so they can start the process and come join our team, where else should they be looking? Where should they be advocates and go do their own research if, besides meeting with you two directly?
Oh, well, we have a website.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll ping the website at the bottom.
Yeah, and then we put it here. Do you have the website? How it's called?
I don't know if Sergeant Uroza's got that one. But the website, when you go onto it, a lot of good information on Marine to Guard. At the bottom of it, we'll give you contacts for all three locations. So we have myself on the East Coast, Sergeant First Class Uroza over there on the West Coast. And then we have a new counselor that's coming in to take over in Hawaii because it's currently vacant. And he should be starting here shortly, probably in the next 60 to 90 days, but then we'll have a point of contact there as well. But all three of them are mass email boxes and a point of contact phone number. So you can either email or phone call us with and it tells you the general information that we're looking for to kind of get started to gauge what we got going on there. That's basically where you're going to do your research at.
Perfect. So, can you guys provide your phone number so that we can put it also on embedded under yourselves?
That's 760.
Okay.
My number is 760-208-7877, and that's my personal number. I tell every Marine that walks in here, hey, shoot me a text, give me a call. I'm there to answer all your questions. So I'm pretty flexible when it comes to that.
Awesome.
Ours is 571-651-1788. That is the one that goes to our office, not my personal. But that is only because there's myself and we have a contractor as well. So that way, if you call and one of us is on leave or anything, definitely get a hold of somebody here.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah. Can I throw out another number?
Yeah.
This one is 951-609-4087, and that is my counterpart, Mr. Marshall. Which funny story, he's my recruiter. He's the guy that brought me from the Marine Corps to the National Guard, and now me and him work together.
That's great.
Recruiting more Marines.
Awesome.
Oh, we're getting more Marines in. We're not recruiters, we're transition counselors.
Right.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, like, why counselor on your title?
Because, well, first of all, counselor, because we don't just, I'm just getting technical. We don't have RZ. We don't have a quota, and we don't use MET, right? So again, our triple C's are counselors. We counsel Marines on their options to continue their service with the Guard, not just the Guard. If we have something we can't offer them, we tell them, hey, have you tried the Army Reserves? Because I know they have certain MOSs that we don't have, right? Or even Marine Corps Reserve. We try to advise them in terms of the entire process. Okay, you start working with us. Oh, you have a packet pending with CBP, right? Or CHP, right? Hey, if you get hired by the CHP, give me that letter. I will directly provide that to your unit, RNCO. Let them know, hey, this Marine's inbound to your unit. However, he's at the academy, right? So we kind of advise Marines on what to do, because sometimes they're concerned. It's like, hey, I just got a job offer. I don't know if I can show out to my unit right away, right? Or hey, I started school. When should you recommend that I go to AIT, right? At MOS Schoolhouse. So we kind of planned them. We planned that path for them. So that's why we decided to go with counselor. I don't know what you got, Dibiaso, but
That's all.
right.
You got the whole RNCO. I think we're more on the R, or the second R, on the retention side. Comes more into the counseling. But when you hear the term recruiter, it really is just all in the name and the stigmata that kind of comes along with it. So if we're sitting over here on a Marine Corps base and we're talking to Marines and we're saying, hey, go see that Guard recruiter, they don't want to talk to a recruiter again.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, I would say 85% of the time, the people that we're talking to, the Marines, they're all first term. So they're within that first 4 or 5 year contract of where they're at. And then they just got burnt. Everybody feels like they did not like their recruiter the first time, or however that feeling is. So we want to kind of soften that blow coming into it. So calling yourself a counselor and then it also is just what we're doing. We're not recruiting them. They already kind of know what's going on. They have a thought, since we're not actively out into or on the base recruiting itself. We're not slinging business cards. We can't put up flyers. We're not doing what a canvassing recruiter would do to gain control of their AO. So we're here all word of mouth and really successful and growing because Marines are telling other Marines that they like what happened here. We're just straight up and honest. We tell our story, then we counsel them on where they want to go. And that's why we just went with counselors, because we're just advising out. So either counselor or advisor would be better than recruiter for what we actually.
That's awesome. So again, if you're liking the content, like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, so whenever we upload a new podcast or video, you get notified. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, CO National Guard, CO National Guard. And if you are in Colorado, and you are a Marine, just send us a DM. Or even if you're out of state, we'll send your contact to Sergeant Uroza or Sergeant Dibiaso, and we'll get you in contact with them. Again, like you have the phone number. is either on the description below or in the couple minutes before. It will pop up on your screen. So go back in the video and then get those the phone numbers. Again, Sergeant Uroza, West Coast. Sergeant Dibiaso, East Coast. So don't get confused. Don't call Sergeant Uroza like from the East Coast because he might be sleeping. So
we're not recruiters, so it doesn't matter which counselor you talk to and where you're located. If you call either one of us, it doesn't matter. We'll get you to where you need to be. If you are on the West Coast at like Camp Pendleton, you're a Marine there, I would just shoot you over to Sergeant First Class Uroza because you can get the ability to do a face-to-face. But if this is a Marine station in like Japan or Quantico or any other like an I&I billet at some state doing a reserve or like a AGR type of position, it doesn't matter which counselor you actually reach out to. We can both be able to help you out. And if you're a 79 Tango listening, come on, Title 10.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that we didn't cover or anything that you guys want to add?
I think we pretty much said that.
Yes. I got a couple of things. Thanks for asking, Sergeant. Something I forgot to mention. If the Marine joins the Guard through the Marine to Guard program, they can be stabilized for 2 or 3 years. Meaning they are going to, let's say, they join the Guard and they're going to a unit that's deploying. Right, they're going overseas. We provide them a civilization, meaning that Marine or that new soldier doesn't have to deploy federally with their unit. It's happened to me on multiple occasions where I send a Marine to Wisconsin and he called me up. I was like, "Hey, Sergeant Uroza, my unit's deploying to Iraq." I'm like, "Hey, man, you're good. You got that stabilization policy." But we also tell them, however, if you want to deploy, you can decline that stabilization memo so that way you can mobilize with your unit and get that deployment. Because a lot of the Marines, they maybe joined the Marine Corps to go on a deployment. They didn't, and we tell them, hey, the Guard deploys. We do both. We do a lot of state missions, and we also do a lot of federal missions overseas as well, too. So it's an opportunity for you to go out there and explore the world.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Different sides of the continental United States right now. Biggest thing, if you're a Marine listening, watching, continue your service, right? You've done amazing things in your career. There's no reason to end it. There's a lot of us here.
Yeah.
So, in the Guard.
That's awesome. Again, like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, CO National Guard, CO National Guard.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good work, guys.